Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us right here on Punchline. Now, you probably seated at home asking yourself, questioning quite a number of things in terms of what the Jubilee government has had to do since they came into government. I'm talking about the issues that we've dealt with as a country, never-ending corruption scandals. But the big question is the choice of investments that we've made as a country for that period that the Jubilee government has been in power. And joining me tonight is Professor Gituro Wainaina, who's the chairman of Kenya School of Government and the former Director General for the Vision 2030 Secretariat Delivery Team. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening.
All right, thank you very much for making time for us tonight. So let's just begin by talking about the question of the Vision 2030. This was something that was initiated way back in 2008 by the former head of state, that is President Mwai Kibaki. Now, looking at the time that we've served as a country, the time that has passed up until right now, are we still on track with this particular vision?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and very good question. No, I don't think we are.
Yeah.
And I think there are area issues perhaps we could have done better, and we should do better. But really, we are not on track. There are various areas we dropped the ball. And I have a lot of very clear mind in terms of remembering the commitment we had with the President Kibaki and the head of the public service, Muthaura, Francis Muthaura. I think that team, in one way or other, disappeared in one way. And I think it's important that focusing on our agenda becomes very important. There are things, of course, which has happened in the process. Some of them supporting, others not. And we seem to have been taken out of the derailed by SDGs so much that everybody now is talking about SDG without, of course, appreciating that SDGs and the Vision 2030 complement each other. But to answer your question, we dropped the ball somewhere. We did. And I think it's time to start to rethink or reset, as we see 2020 was a year for resetting. We need to reset ourselves with respect to the Vision 2030.
All right. Now, you've said, no, we are not on track and we probably dropped the ball somewhere. And I want to believe this is an answer that resonates with quite a number of Kenyans. So where do you think the disconnect is in terms of making Kenyans see that this is what is being done, this is the long-term goal, to actually convince them that, yes, we might have dropped the ball, but certain things are still running? Where do you think that disconnect exists?
I think without even past bringing the recent phenomena in terms of the COVID-19, there were certain goals and targets we had set in 2008 when we got ourselves in the Vision 2030. We have only 10 years left. And one of the key things was to put the GDP as a measure of how the country is performing well to about 11%. And probably with the three pillars, talking about the economic pillar, talking about the social pillar, and probably the political pillar. If I step back, the political pillar, I think we did fantastic. It was well done. One of the key things in the political pillar was the constitution on board. We have it. But when you come to the economic pillar, which was a jumpstart of the economy quickly because of adding value and service to our goods and services, probably that is something we have not done extremely well. Our coffee still goes out there. Our tea sector, we know what it is right now. And they are manufacturing. We are looking at agriculture. We're looking at social pillar. We're looking at education. Fair enough, education you have done well. But there's still challenges in terms of health sector. There's still opportunities to push these sectors than we have. So I think in terms of really looking at the areas we probably could have done better, I see more the economic pillar would have much better. Right now, somebody exporting avocados from Zimbabwe or Malawi or Zambia for that matter gets a better deal than us exporting avocados because of the deliberate effort by those governments to ensure that there is a more facilitative opportunities within those sectors. So those are the areas, and you look in terms of even with the COVID-19, there are certain areas we could have focused which a turnaround time is so quick. Those perhaps you invest 5 shillings, you get almost 1,000 shillings. And I'm looking at the areas of agriculture, I'm looking at manufacturing. So those are the areas perhaps we look at the roadmap of the Vision 2030. We could have done extremely well in terms of jump-starting our economy. But there are areas, and I think this is something we have to be alive to, there are certain investments which the returns don't come in 2 years, 3 years. I'm talking about LAPSET. It's a huge investment which provides enormous opportunities for growth, but there's a long term. But in terms of when you are, it's the same phenomena. If a house is burning, you actually don't start asking who burned the house. You go put the fire and then address who burned the house. Therefore, there are key things we should have learned with, particularly in the economic period, and those ones perhaps we would have seen the different in turnaround of our economy. My mind goes to the Africa trade, free trade. There are certain things we haven't done yet. As a country, we could benefit a lot. So there are few things we need to perhaps put in another gear and address them appropriately.
All right. So, Professor, just even before we get into the finer details of the milestones, the 2010 Constitution that was promulgated in that same year, this came 2 years after the initiation of the Vision 2030. So would you blame certain mistakes on the change of policies that was brought about by the Constitution?
No. I think the Constitution was the right thing, and I still was the most important thing to have done. One, we had an opportunity as Kenya to participate in it, unlike the Lancaster, where it was drafted out there. Kenyans really had to go there and draft in terms of the drafting there. The Constitution 2010, and I thank God I had the opportunity to be in thick of it, brought certain things, particularly one thing it did was the whole issue of devolution. And the idea was we need to take services more to the mwananchi, to the last mile I call it. And to me that was fundamental in the sense that I do recall in the 70s, the director of education who knew that every headmaster in this country, come 2010, you couldn't. And therefore we needed to take those services to the mwananchi. And therefore I think the Constitution, there was no conflict. Indeed, what we did, because I was in it, and most institutions in government did, is to realign their strategies, is to realign what they do with the Constitution. And the good thing is the Constitution had an opportunity to benefit from the Kenyan perspective. I think to me what we probably need to do is how do we realign our Constitution or look at it 10 years now. So there are things we have learned, there are things we have done well, there are things perhaps we have goofed. So how do we as a government, how do we as Kenyans really look at that Constitution and see how is it supportive of what we want to be? It was very clear in the Vision 2030. High quality life for all Kenya, irrespective whether in Kuria, whether in Siaya, whether in Garissa. And I think that's, to me, the Constitution was firm. The Constitution is a document which really gets the mind of people. And therefore, there were no policies in conflict of what? It is perhaps in the implementation of that Constitution. And what comes to my mind very strongly, the gender rule. So those are the issues we really need to address and see. The spirit of the Constitution was very positive and is still very positive for the development of this country.
All right. Now, Professor, a big part of a new project such as the Vision 2030 is that there's room for doing good, there's room for making mistakes, and you learn as the time passes by. So you are at the helm of this particular team at some point as the Director General. Looking back and up to the point that we are right now, would you say there are certain projects that you might have probably invested in and have turned into, say, not so viable projects, so to say?
Okay.
Yeah.
You're spot on. And I think the Japanese are interesting. They say it's good to make mistakes, but you repeat them, don't. Rather, they say read the newspaper, and it's good to make mistakes, but if you repeat them, you should be punished. Yes, one which comes to my mind very strongly, and probably this is my pet subject, and very strong in terms I believe in it, was the Garana in terms of food sufficiency. We talk about almost 18%, 20% of Kenyans today are having problems in terms of food, going to bed without food. They're hungry. That's something we should have fast-tracked like yesterday. I think that's one area, looking at some of the key projects we had in the Vision 2030, we could have done differently. And I think it's important that, and this has been my very strongest view, the government has a responsibility of policy, the government has a responsibility of quality assurance, but the government is not an implementer, and the government should not be an implementer at all. It ensures whoever is implementing have a responsibility to live high-quality standards. I think the one of Garana,
yes.
The issue of the food sufficiency is something we would have done differently. But the bottom line is this.
Yeah.
If you can't feed people, if people are hungry, forget anything else. I will not go to school.
Okay.
Food is medicine.
Okay.
So the other one I think is CONSA. Very, very important in terms of even addressing, and even COVID to me is an opportunity, how CONSA would have played out. If you look in terms of what CONSA was all about, it was both coming with new ideas to do things. We probably didn't push it in a way, in the sense that the deal was the government does the horizontal infrastructure.
Yes.
Horizontal infrastructure, roads, sewer, power. The entrepreneurs, even South Korea came in terms of the invest there, does the vertical infrastructure. So what happened is the investors come, there is no vertical infrastructure, and couldn't have moved. So that's an area, and it's so important. It plays out so well today, even in this aspect of COVID-19, even with our youth, in terms of innovative. And I have two countries which come to my mind in Africa, three actually, Ghana, Rwanda, Mauritius. They are leveraging on East residency.
Yes.
And that's an area we should have, with our M-Pesa, we should have been miles ahead than anybody else in Africa, or in the world indeed.
Okay, Professor, just allow me to jump in there. You've talked about projects that you have probably handled way better than you did, and you've mentioned the Galana project, and you've also talked about Konza City. So is it safe for me to say that this, as we speak right now, are white elephant projects? Because over time, we've seen the government and those handling it reassuring people, pardon me, that they're still ongoing and they're on road to becoming something beautiful. So can we call them white elephant project as of now?
I probably will not use that word,
yes.
White elephant, because white elephant, you're like there and you're gone. If you go to Konza, there are still things happening.
Yeah.
And Tanui is doing something there. If you go to Garana, they're still happening. I think what we need to do is reset and re-engineer ourselves. Perhaps as a government, need to step back and see this partnership we're talking about with or rather partnership with the private sector. And we can realign it. We can actually, and there's nothing wrong in that. We have learned, and from mistakes we learn, and we can do better. I still think deep of my heart that the Garana one, we need to readdress it as, like yesterday. If you look at the big four, the whole issue of nutrition of food comes very important. But something very important, and we'll be cheating ourselves like Kenyans, or anybody in the world for that matter. You can't do agriculture without water. Forget it.
Yes.
You're just cheating yourself. And that was the whole aspect of the Garana. I think I know there are people lined up in terms of who would like to participate in that. That's a commodity. You have it for, it's demanded breakfast, 10 o'clock, lunchtime, evening. So you can't go wrong with food at all. All right. The only thing is you focus properly, have water in place. We have countries like Israel who have gone to another level in terms of how they are dealing with that. So I think it's probably not white elephant, because I think it's very relevant. If you look at the Agenda 4, which we are now going through the medium term 3, one of the key flagship is actually food and nutrition. And square it, that has all to do with Garana.
Okay, Professor. So, I mean, we still have quite a number of things to talk about. So just allow me to take this break right now on Punchline. But when you get back, I'll continue engaging Professor Gituro Wainaina right there, who's the chairman of Kenya School of Government, trying to make sense of what has been happening right here in our country and if we are actually headed towards the right direction. Do stay with us.